Hi everybody, this is Anime from Accelerated Excellence and True Awakenings NLP Coaching and Training Center. So welcome to this recording, and my intention is to hopefully empower you with some information and knowledge that you can apply not only in this global pandemic that we find ourselves in, but also in your life going forward. And so I'm sure some of you have been wondering, like, what can I do? What can I, as one individual in this collective, possibly do in a time like this that can affect change? And how could I make a difference in the world if I'm just one person? And we can underestimate the power of who we are as individuals, and the influence that we have on the rest of the world, the people around us, the environment. So I want to start with a few concepts. Like I said in the introduction video, let's jump down this rabbit hole, because it gets quantum weirdness down there, and a very interesting world to experience indeed. And it certainly does challenge our concept. So I'm gonna try and stick around the science of it as much as what I can, out of respect for all the different religions out there. Whichever path you choose should get you closer to it anyway. But I'm going to stay as closely to the science as what I can to make it logical and rational and understandable, and put the links into the comment section underneath the video, so that if you want to go and read up further with more information, that you can do so, and go and Google and search, and let this be a beginning and a starting point for you, but certainly not the be-all and end-all, because I'll only share with you my perception and my projection as a result, but be free to go and find some more information from other experts out there and people that have that enjoy this field as much as what I do, and you'll get many different ways of looking at the same thing and giving you layers and layers of information that makes it more understandable for you ultimately at the end of the day. So I want to talk about a concept called entanglement, which is in the wacky, weird, wonderful, weird world of quantum physics. And we're going to talk about what our physical bodies are made of, how that plays a role in this field of entanglement. And then I'm going to talk about a hypothesis and a study that was done that they refer to as the Maharishi effect, and just putting it all together, and then leave you off with a technique and a tool, a familiar one, I'm sure, no doubt, for a lot, but I want to talk about literally how to apply this for those who are beginners, and just maybe reaffirm for those who are who has been doing this for a while. So I'll leave you in suspense until I get there about what I'm talking about. So let's get back to this field of entanglement. And some time back, I came across a piece of literature. Unfortunately, with my laptop packing up last year, I lost the actual documentation. When I find it again, I'll be certain to share it with you. But what it was ultimately talking about is that they wanted to measure if we were to separate some DNA, like a cotton swab inside of your mouth, and remove some of that DNA, put it in a petri dish, and separate it from the host, we wanted to measure whether there was any form of connection between the DNA and the host body, whether there was a time delay or some connection still there. They then would take the host, let's say it was me, hook me up to an EEG machine, measure the electrical impulses in my brain by flashing pictures on a screen that creates a certain stimulus. So measuring that response in the brain based on what's on the screen. And then at the same time, because obviously we've done that a million times, but what they wanted to measure really was, once they've separated this DNA, whether there was any response from the DNA at all. So what they found was that the moment that the host responded to whatever was flashed onto the screen, that the DNA would respond instantaneously as if it was still attached to the host. They found this bizarre, and they thought, okay, well, maybe it's just because we did this in the same room, maybe it's a space thing or a time thing. They thought, okay, let's come back next week and we'll do the exercise again. They put the DNA in the fridge, let the host go. Months later, a week later, came back, did the exercise again. DNA responded instantaneously as if still attached to the host. Very bizarre. So time was not the factor playing here. So they thought maybe it was space, that it was all being done in the same room, in the same lab. So they separated the space, put the DNA in a different lab and put the host in a different room, putting them in one building but separating them in a couple of floors. and then again did the same thing, stimulated the host with visual pictures on a screen, and the DNA, lo and behold, responded instantaneously as if still attached to the host. They then thought, okay, let's get a little bit extreme in space, and as this exercise was done in the US, they moved it to separate counties apart from one another, and the DNA still responded instantaneously as if it was still attached to the host. So what they've come to believe is that the field of entanglement is a really low vibrational frequency that we can't see with the naked eye, similar to what we can't see microwaves or ultraviolet, that our eyesight is limited to what we can experience. I mean, just ask an eagle, and if you could, it would explain that it sees way more than what we do, is what our senses are limited. So the fact that we couldn't see this gave us the illusion of things being separate. And what entanglement really means is that if two electrons were created simultaneously, that they would be connected still, even if they were seemingly separate. So they will be entangled. Now, if you put one electron on the other side of the universe and you do something to the one, instantaneously it would happen to the other one as well. To give you a simple practical example, have you ever thought of someone and all of a sudden your phone rings and it's that person on you look at the phone almost in disbelief that their name is actually even on the screen, and you answer and say, hey, you will never guess. I was just thinking about you. How bizarre that you're phoning me right now at this moment as I'm thinking about you. So you might ask yourself, well, where did I get that information? How did how did they just randomly show up in your mind and in your thoughts? And then all of a sudden the phone rings and there they are. So we're going to talk about the body and what it's made up of, and how that information actually travels on this field of entanglement, and that it's instantaneous. You've probably heard about people doing long distance healing, and because we perceive, if you're on another continent than where I am, that you perceive that it's going to take some time just because of the distance. In actual fact, entanglement says that it is instantaneous. So long distance healing is not long distance, it's immediate. So I'll put up a link of a YouTube clip, a quick small one on the field of entanglement. I'm going to talk about a different topic to tomorrow's recording, which is going to be another clip that is done on the same animation called Dr. Quantum. That's going to give you some insights into where that comes from and how the scientists in physics have measured all of this in quantum physics, quantum mechanics. And so, you know, I remember a very specific client of mine a couple of years ago who was driving back from work one afternoon, and she popped into my head, and I thought, okay, I wonder how she's doing, and she's probably just thinking of the coaching, or, you know, just for some reason thinking of me, and thought, left my mind, carried on driving home, went about my way for the evening. And later on that evening, she popped into my head again. Same person I haven't seen in a couple of years, and I thought, well, that's, you know, I don't believe in coincidence, and the more you'll spend time with me on these recordings, the more I'll share with you why. And so I pay attention to echoes, and this was the second time I thought of her randomly in my evening. And I remember very clearly that it was about 9:05, because as I became aware of her again, I looked at the clock to see if I could phone her quickly and check if she was okay. And 9 o'clock for me is a bit late to phone, so I thought I'll phone her the next day on the way to work. Next morning, I'm up early and doing my usual the fitness routine, and I'm getting onto my treadmill, and it's about 5:15 in the morning, and third time she pops into my head, and I got off my treadmill and I sent her a message, and I said, good morning, how are you doing? Are you okay? And as I pressed send, her message came through at the exact same time. So her saying good morning, how's it going, and you know, what time's convenient for her to give me a shout later on in the day. And then her next message obviously came through saying, that is so freaky, you sent me a message at the same time, that's so weird. And of course it would be if you're not aware of these things, but we write it off to coincidence, and it just, you know, happened to happen that way. But on the field of entanglement, what was really happening is, because I've spent time with her, coaching her, and went through an entire personal breakthrough with her, unconsciously became very familiar to her vibrational frequency. So when vibrationally on the field of entanglement, my body picked up a frequency that was familiar and brought her to my attention as a result. So yes, it might sound a bit strange. I'd say that let's jump down that rabbit hole and see where we land. And I will explain to you as we go through the recordings all the science that back up this. Okay, so the field of entanglement is where this information really travels on. Okay, and so what are we made of? What is our physical bodies made of? Is chemically speaking, we're made of hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon. From a biological perspective, you can downsize the body into organs and muscles and bones and tissues and cells. And from a physics perspective, when you downsize the cells, you'll find molecules, atoms, subatomic particles, neurons, protons, electrons, and so forth. Now, most people are familiar with the concept of atoms, and that there is a vibrating frequency that happens inside of the atom. So that means that every single cell of your body technically is made of vibrating waves of light called energy. These atoms inside the molecules is what creates this vibrational frequency. So fundamentally, you're made of energy. So as entanglement says, at the moment of the Big Bang, everything was once entangled and so is still connected. Although we can't see it with the eye, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So even when we feel separateness, separateness is not real. It is just because we cannot see this frequency that keeps us all connected. So the physical body is energy, and everything in the universe and around us is made up of molecules and atoms and the same structure. So it's just how the molecules, the molecular structure and the frequency of the vibration is what separates us. It's what separates me from this chair, from the table, from the laptop, from water in a glass. It's because they're vibrating at different frequencies that creates this illusion of separateness. Because if they were to vibrate at the exact same frequency, they would become one. And there's so many movies that explains these concepts to us that we don't actually realize what they're saying. But if we can conceive the idea, then it can be manifested with the mind. So the physical body, think of it as like an antenna, like when you have weather and you have this conductor that will carry this current. That's your physical body. It's actually this energy center and hub that communicates onto the field of entanglement and also receives information from this field of entanglement. So why is this important? Let me tell you, that it brings me to this hypothesis or this study that they did at the Maharishi University of Management in Iowa. And they measured the crime statistics between 2002 and 2006 and related those to 2007 to 2010. And in those 3 years, what they did is they had transcendental meditators. So people that have been trained in the technique of transcendental meditation and an advanced program of that. A group of them would go in, and what they found is that it took 1% of people, 1% is the number of people we need to move the energy of a population. So what they found in Iowa is that the homicide rate decreased by 21.2% in those 3 years. And all they did is that they had these advanced meditators meditating in the area twice a day. So again, I'll put the link up so you can go and have a look at the information. It's quite mind-blowing, and that's why they called it the Maharishi effect. So Maharishi was a yogi from India, and he introduced the concept of meditation, transcendental meditation to be specific, to the world, or to the Western world, much to the Eastern disgust. And initially they didn't want him to do that. It was state secret. So he just said this is something that belongs to the world. So he then branched out and shared this technique and started training and teaching people all over the world. I remember watching a clip on an African lady, and she was exposed to a lot of trauma in her life, a lot of hardship. Her husband had been killed at war. She'd been sexually assaulted in the war. I know that at some stage she had to run for her life with her children. If there was something bad in the air floating, it probably fell on this woman. It was really, really traumatic that she had gone through. And they went into this area and they taught them how to do transcendental meditation. And that means 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening as the sun sets. And they did that for a week. So before they started the the meditation, they would interview everybody that was participating, and this specific lady would tell you her story, and the tears would simply just flow and flow and flow. And you could see all the raw emotions that she was experiencing, recalling those memories. And then, same woman, a week later, 7 days worth of meditation, trained and now meditating. And she would tell you the same story, her life story, with a smile on her face. And at the end said, I know that when I told you the story the last time that I couldn't stop crying, she said, I just can't access those tears anymore. So what is amazing about this is that when we get this human body, this body that's so amazing and phenomenal and that vibrates at a natural state, that if we can get this aligned to our natural state of well-being and get that vibrational frequency to emit onto this field of entanglement, we can affect the collective consciousness. We can affect one another in a profound way. So the Maharishi effect is really 1% of the population. So how many people in our country do we need to shift the energy in our country? And that just really means that we have to share the same intention, and we have to have the same outcome in mind, and focus on achieving that. And who do I have to be to get there? How do I have to think to be able to get my state of mind into a state of being that projects that vibrational frequency? Okay, so it's like one big spider web. We have the spider web, and you might think that, how do I even impact? So if the spider web's like this, and let's say your little thread is down here, if something happens to this thread, and let's say this thread snaps, it's going to affect the balance and the structure of this entire web. The people on the other side of the web might not actually feel it as much or be even aware of any structural change. Around you, there will be a big impact, though. The people around you, the environment around you will be directly influenced by this change and this balance of the structure on the web. So not only do we communicate onto this web, but this web communicates back to us in form of who's next to you on this web, and how is their energy projecting onto you. And guys, I'm not saying be an ostrich and stick your head in the sand and pretend that none of this trauma that's happening around the world doesn't exist. But at the end of the day, we're going to ask ourselves, how do we shift it? Does focusing on the propaganda of fear get us into a state of mind that supports a state of being that affects us collectively positively? Or is it, what is the focus point that's going to get me there? So they've done a study between the heart and the brain. This age-old argument about the head and the heart. And they measured the electrical current of the brain versus the heart. And the heart was 60 times stronger than the brain. Do not forget, the brain is incredibly powerful. One of the brain cells is more complexly wired than the entire telephone network system in the world. So when the heart is 60 times stronger than that, that must be quite profound. Even more profound from a magnetic field. So that's the electrical current. The magnetic field of the heart versus the brain, the heart is 5,000 times stronger. So science has gone and confirmed that the strongest frequency, emotional feeling on this planet is called love. I think there might be something in scripture that affirms that for us. So in Buddhism, they call it compassion. So it's this frequency of love. If I was to focus on love instead of fear, how am I spending energy in terms of the solution? Am I part of the problem, or am I part of what causes this 1% of the population that shifts this? And if we can get more than that, then we can shift a bigger area. So focusing on, and I'm going to break it down into smaller steps with every recording to say, what can I do specifically? What do I need to pay attention to me as an individual that will allow for the highest, most amazing, beautiful frequency that will emit onto this field of entanglement, this beautiful spider web that we all call home. So the technique I wanted to talk about is, how do I actually do that? One technique is called meditation. I've already touched on that with the Maharishi effect. And transcendental meditation is one form of meditation. There's many different ways. I think you've got to find what works for you. If you're a beginner and you find it difficult to silence your mind, I call it the art of silence. I might have read that somewhere. Because it is an art. When you begin, it takes a bit of practice and determination and follow through and getting into that silent space of the mind. Now, the reason it's an art is because we are so incredibly overstimulated with technology, with information, and TV and computers and cell phones and everything bombarded everywhere onto your nervous system. And so we are in the habit of our minds running really, really fast, processing a lot of information. And for those of you struggling to sleep, you've got to learn how to switch that thing off. Otherwise, it'll keep you awake at night. So it's getting the computer to shut down and snooze and rest. And relaxation responses is what we want to access. So we're either in a fight and flight response, which is the stress response, or we're in a relaxation response. And it's like a switch. You have to switch it on. So with all the fear that's going on, it provokes the stress response. So how do I switch it on? Is to go into silent space. So setting up a comfortable area. You do not have to be able to put your feet on your knees. It takes practice to get there. It might be really uncomfortable in the beginning if your body's not flexible and used to that. Sit on a chair. Have your back nice and supported. I've been asked before, can you lie down? Yes, the body is also anchored to sleeping when you're lying down. So, and is it the best position for you? If you can lie on a couch and not fall asleep and just be able to access that nice state of relaxation, then that's perfect. If you find yourself falling asleep, then try sitting up instead, because the point is not to sleep. It's not sleeping. It is switching off the outside world and becoming more aware of inside, but there is still a slight bit of awareness. So think of it when you wake up in the morning and you're slightly becoming aware of the world outside. You're not yet 100% awake. The conscious mind's not taking over yet. But there's that nice, smooth, relaxing feeling. That's sort of what you're aiming to get to. Now, as a scuba diver, my mind brings up this picture every time I think of meditation, I think of diving, where I'm underneath the water and I see a lot of fish around, but I'm not touching the fish. And pardon me, they're not coming into my space either. I'm aware of them and they're aware of me, but we are not connecting. So I feel the same way around my thoughts. I might be aware of them floating around, but I'm not connecting to them. I'm choosing just to go, oh, there it goes, and just focus on what gets me into a nice, calm space. So transcendental meditation, for those of you who's interested in KwaZulu-Natal, send me a private message and I will connect you to a wonderful lady called Bev up in Kloof area, if I remember correctly, and she is a teacher of transcendental meditation. You can Google tm.com and find her there. And so really what they do is they give you a mantra which helps you focus on a word until your mind is so relaxed that it just transcends into nothingness or silence or a void, as we would refer to it. Now, some people feel comfortable with doing a guided meditation, so you can go onto YouTube and type in guided meditations and obviously find a voice of someone that you really like. It needs to be soothing, not something that gets you going, oh, I don't like the sound of this voice and the pitch of this person, so that you can actually relax and not have to pay so much attention. Another wonderful way of doing it is just becoming more aware of your breath as you breathe in and out naturally. Don't force it, just become aware of your body's natural flow of breathing. You can do specific breathing exercises, as in breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts. That will cause your conscious mind to count and concentrate on that. And that'll help you create more oxygen going into the body, which relaxes the frontal lobe in the brain as more oxygen flows in there. And that switches on this relaxation response. Okay, so other words for meditation, because it sounds like something I have to do. Can be contemplation, can be pondering, when you're just sitting on the ocean, on the beach at the ocean, and you're just staring at the waves. When you go into that daydreaming space, that's more or less what you're aiming for. Now, sometimes the more you practice this, the more your body will start releasing stress, and when it hits a stress pocket. So, unfortunately, when we experience things, you don't get to take it outside and put it in the fridge. It gets stored in your body. So when you're starting to silence the mind and the mind starts relaxing, it starts moving these stress pockets. And when it creates this movement, there might be thought activity again, because the body and the mind is connected. The thought activity might not be exactly representative of what was now released in the body. So don't pay attention to the thoughts. It doesn't really matter. Just get out of the bodies, get the mind out of the way, get out of your mind so that your body can reboot to its natural default setting. It knows exactly what to do. We just need to give it an opportunity. There's too much stress in our world. We are not designed to carry this much stress. We're running around worrying about paying our bills, taxi drivers, joking if there are any taxi drivers watching, and any stressor that's around, deadlines, budgets, SARS, tax returns, anything like that that causes you to feel stress is bombarding your system during the day. And in the way the body is designed was literally to survive and to hunt and to feed. And sleeping at night was sufficient and enough to de-stress. But the amount of pressure that we are experiencing in our day-to-day life, it is not enough for the body to de-stress. So 20 minutes of meditation, they found, is equivalent to 8 hours rest for the body. Profound. Some of you might even call them power naps, didn't even know you were meditating, because it's really a completely natural state to be in. So there you go. I want to leave you with two last statements that I stumbled across in some metaphysical studies that I'm busy doing. So nothing can affect human life as the new understanding of consciousness, which can not only keep pace with the rapid advancements of our technology, but potentially accelerate far beyond it. Okay, so getting connected to your deeper self and getting connected to that consciousness and that energy that resides within you gets you connected to the entire web, and all the information that's on there is downloadable. So it sounds a little bit sci-fi, but that's really, it's accessible again for us. When we get out of this perception of what we think we have to do and get into who we really are fundamentally and tap into that consciousness that resides in the body. And again, I'll break that down for you at a later stage. And then Carl Jung, one of my favorite guys to follow, one of his statements when he started studying some of the topics and teachings in metaphysics, he said that what the East, as in the Eastern philosophies, knows about the human mind is at least 2,000 years ahead of Western psychology. So maybe they were onto something, right? And I think the meditation is a good place to start, or breathing exercises or relaxation exercises, counting your breath or just becoming aware of your breath and slowing it down. The more relaxed you become, the more you might find your breathing gets shallower, and every now and again you'll feel yourself going, and that's 100%. It means your body is really relaxed. So try it. If you could do 20 minutes twice a day, that would be most ideal. In the morning as the sun rises and in the evening as the sun sets. So it sets your intention for the day and it de-stresses at the end of your day. We're all at home, and not running around outside the way that we used to, and which I think is amazing that we're in this situation that we currently find ourselves. I think the world's rebooting, and I think it's an amazing opportunity for us to do things differently, because I think the old normal, what we refer to as normal, has been outdated, and this is an opportunity for us to set some new standards and some new boundaries of where we want to take not only our own lives, but where do we want to take this planet? Because we might need to start doing a few things differently. Okay, and so when we get back to our lives outside, once this is over, and it will be over, we've survived many things before, we'll survive this too, and we just need to look after ourselves in a way that allows for that to take place, and that's the intention of these videos. And so when we get back to our lives outside, that you can de-stress before you go home. Do the 20 minutes as the sun sets, either when you get home or before you leave your office, or wherever is the most convenient time where you find it easier to quiet your mind, so that when you go home and engage with your family again, you're on a clean slate. You've released the pressure of the day. You don't walk in to the house with that stress still playing in the back of your mind and projecting into your family time for the rest of your evening. So even now, while we're at home, it's a good place to start putting some boundaries in place to say to the kids, okay, I'm going to take 15 to 20 minutes in the morning and I don't want to be disturbed. So what are you going to do? And give them a task and get them to get used to being occupied and occupying themselves. If you can, I mean, depending on the age of the kids, you can even teach your children to meditate with you. Do it together as a family. The younger they are, the less they'll sit still. Maybe you're lucky to get 5 minutes out of them, or they can do a mantra while they're walking. So that's one way of doing it, and start putting those practices in place now, so that when life gets faster again, and it will, that you already have the foundations rebooted and reset, and that you can access the relaxation response and collectively affect not only your own world, but the people around you in a positive light frequency, in a way that creates harmony for everybody around you as they come into play. And just like misery loves company, we also love being around people that exude this great energy. So be the change you need to see in the world take charge of your internal state. I'm going to give you more techniques as we go through all these videos. Start with that. Start with the meditation. Start with silencing that mind so that that can heal the body, release the stress and this fear that we are being bombarded with. And we'll chip away. And at the end of these videos, hopefully you'd be well on your way to the brand new pattern that creates the momentum for the future that you strive for and that unleashes you and your full potential to live the life of your dreams and on your terms. So sending you much love. Hope you enjoyed this. Please send any questions in the comments underneath, or private message me if you feel it's more private, and I will as objectively and simply respond. If there's any topics that you feel that you want more information on, just send me the request and I will link you up. Okay, so sending you much love and see you soon.